Do you think success and hard work only come from lifting heavy loads, or does working on a computer also count as effort? I'm Ezra Lockwood. I'm 23 years old and live in Charleston, South Carolina. My entire life has revolved around numbers, data, and calculations. For 2 years, I sacrificed sleepless nights, canceled vacations, and gave up my social life to build my own financial technology company. My father, Raymond Lockwood, came from a completely different world. He ran his own landscaping business for 30 years. A man who had dug into the earth with his hands and carried the sun on his back. To him, success was measured by physical exhaustion at the end of the day. Hours spent in front of a computer meant nothing. That's why, whenever I talked about my work, I could see the dismissive fog in his eyes. But everything changed on my 23rd birthday. Blackwater Capital, one of the largest hedge funds on the East Coast, offered me $14 million to license the market prediction algorithm I had developed. It was the reward for years of struggle. Finally, I could prove myself to my father. The next morning, on my way back from New York to Charleston, I stopped by a Ferrari dealership and bought a red Ferrari Roma, not to show off, but to understand the things my father valued. I thought it would be a tangible, visible symbol of success. When I arrived in Charleston, I didn't head straight home. It was Memorial Day, the day of my father's annual backyard barbecue. Customers, employees, old friends, and extended family. Everyone would be there. This year, the party would have a different meaning. I wanted to share my success story in front of everyone and make my father proud. If you like my story, don't forget to subscribe, friends. When I stepped into the backyard, I found my father at the grill, completely focused as always. "Sorry for being late," I said as I walked toward him. "New York traffic was terrible." He glanced up, smiled faintly, then turned back to the steak. That's when I realized my red Ferrari was still nothing more than a toy in his eyes. I spent the entire afternoon trying to talk to him. I brought up the deal, the software, the big firms. Every time, he turned the conversation to lawn care contracts and fence repairs. When I started explaining the technology, he suddenly decided the cooler needed refilling and walked away. As the evening wore on and guests slowly began leaving, I found my father buried in paperwork in his small home office. I stepped in front of his desk. "Dad," I said, "we need to talk about what's happening with my company." Without looking up, he responded, "There's nothing to talk about. You did something with computers, got lucky, but that doesn't make you special." I struggled to contain the years of effort, determination, and disappointment welling up inside me. $14 million isn't luck," I said, keeping my voice steady. At that moment, he finally looked up and locked eyes with me. "Do you know what built this family?" he said. "Breaking my back, working in the mud in the winter, scorching on the asphalt in the summer, not numbers on a screen." His words hit me like a bullet. I didn't hesitate. I quietly closed the door behind me and left. I didn't get into the Ferrari. I didn't speak to anyone. That night, I decided to stay at a hotel. The next morning, my phone rang. It was my cousin, Carter Blake. "Ezra, Uncle Nathan isn't expecting an apology for last night," he said. "But this morning, he told everyone at the company that your success was fake, that the deal fell through, that you rented that car." A cold lump settled in my throat. Something inside me broke. The greatest moment of my life had been torn apart by the hero of my childhood. That was when I realized this wasn't just a desire for approval. This was the first battlefront of a war, and I wouldn't stay silent in this fight. If your father did this to you, what would you do? Let me know in the comments. That morning, I woke up to the dim light seeping through the gray curtains of the hotel room. The room was still as dark as night, but my mind was already awake. My father's words kept replaying in my head. "That doesn't make you special," as if he had drawn a thick black line over all my achievements. My phone was still in my hand. Carter's voice echoed in my ears. He said the car was rented, that the deal was a lie, in front of everyone. My father hadn't just dismissed me. He had humiliated me, undermined my reputation, and he did it in front of the people closest to me in his world. I had to pull myself together. I had spent days preparing for this deal, working day and night. My team in New York was still running final tests on the algorithm. This wasn't a joke. But my father didn't understand that. Or maybe he didn't want to. That day, I moved into a small office in downtown Charleston. When I say office, I mean a corner space in an old accountant's building. I opened my laptop and set up Zoom calls with my team, one by one. The plan had changed. My motivation was no longer just to grow my business. It was to prove that I was right, that I was capable, that I deserved it. But beneath that motivation, there was something else, a growing sense of resentment. And maybe, a truth I had to accept. This wasn't just a difference in perspective between my father and me. This was a war between generations, beliefs, and egos. That evening, I got a message from my mother. "Your father is asking for you. Come home and talk." I couldn't go. In those days, home didn't feel like home anymore. It had become a place where I had been exposed, humiliated, talked about behind my back. I kept staying at the hotel. Every morning I woke up earlier to work. Every night I stayed up later to prepare reports. One morning in the hotel's breakfast lounge, I ran into my cousin Carter. I tried to avoid eye contact, but he sat down next to me. "Uncle still thinks you're a kid," he said. "But you're somewhere else now. He can't accept that." I nodded. "Then why did he lie to everyone?" I asked. Carter was silent for a moment. Then he spoke slowly. "Because your success made his failures visible." His words sank deep. My father hadn't attacked me. He had tried to protect himself, and the only way he knew how was by making me look small. The empire he had built was slowly crumbling. The new world order, digital economy, technological growth, none of it was a realm he understood, and I had inadvertently shown him that he had no place in it. That night I called my mother. Her voice was soft but tired. "Mom, why is there such a disconnect between Dad and me?" I asked. "Because you don't speak the same language," she said. "He still believes success is built with hands, and the things you've achieved. He watches with fear." Hearing those words, my anger gave way to a strange sense of compassion. Maybe my father was just lost. His world had changed, and in this new world, he didn't know where he belonged. But understanding didn't mean forgiving everything. Because I wasn't just his son, I was a leader. People believed in me, invested in me. I had a responsibility to them. In the end, I made a big decision. I hadn't started this business to earn my father's approval. I had started it to carve my own path. And if this was a battle, I had to fight it on my own terms. In my isolated hotel room, under the dim glow of the desk lamp, I organized my notes. I rewrote Horizon Analytics' roadmap. I decided to move the launch forward. I wouldn't wait for the perfect time to announce the company, because sometimes the only way to prove something is to show it. That decision lifted a weight inside me. I was finally stepping out of my father's shadow, slowly but clearly. And deep down I knew this was just the beginning. If you think my decision was right, or if you would have done something differently, let me know in the comments. The next morning, I woke up with a different kind of energy. The shadows of the past were still in my mind, but I was beginning to control them. I had two choices: either stay trapped in my father's past or write my own future. At 11 a.m., I met Martin Holloway in the back lounge of a brick-walled pub in downtown. Martin was a close friend of my Uncle Frank, my father's business partner. He had also been the financial advisor for Lockwood Landscaping. As soon as we sat down, a heavy silence settled between us. There were too many words, yet too few meanings. Martin got straight to the point. "Your father remortgaged the house 3 years ago." I lowered my head. "To upgrade the trucks, buy new equipment, take on bigger projects. He took a risk. But the market shrank. Big companies crushed the competition. Now they can't make the payments anymore." In that moment, everything fell into place. His anger toward me was really toward himself. Because I had found a way out while he was lost. My rise had made his decline visible. My father had to mask his own downfall with my success. And the most painful part? He blamed me for it. Martin chose his words carefully, speaking slowly and deliberately. When he heard about the deal, his first reaction wasn't pride, Ezra. It was fear. Your light revealed his shadow. Something inside me twisted. I had reached this point in life by walking the path my father had paved. Now, as that path crumbled, I was building a new one. But his collapsing road was the heaviest burden on my shoulders, and until I freed myself from that weight, I couldn't build my company or my future. The next morning, I woke up to a message from my mother. "Your father is inviting you to dinner, 7 p.m., at home." I replied with a single word, "Yes." But I didn't go. At 1 p.m., I gathered my team at the office. "We're moving the launch forward, not in 2 months, 3 weeks. At first, everyone seemed stunned, but then, something lit up in their eyes. Belief. For the next week, we worked relentlessly. Codes were written, presentations were prepared, visuals were designed. In Charleston, we rented an old warehouse right next to the historic harbor and turned it into a temporary launch center. Wooden floors were sanded, metal beams repainted. Everything was starting from scratch. Just like me. With every step, more people joined us. Old friends, investors, even some journalists. "Ezra Lockwood is back," whispered the rumors. But the truth was, I had never left. I was simply walking toward myself. We set the launch date, July 24th, exactly 2 months after the day I had returned home to prove my success to my father. Now, I was rewriting that day with my own victory. But this time, I didn't need his approval. I only needed my own belief. Skipping my father's dinner invitation was a message. From now on, I would sit at tables where people truly wanted to listen to me. That was the only way I could exist. That night, I walked alone to the harbor. The sea was silent. The city was loud. But inside, I felt something clearer than ever before. I was broken, but I wasn't finished. I was torn down, but I rebuilt myself. Because sometimes, the deepest wounds lead you to the strongest foundations. How do you think my father and I can resolve our issues? Share your thoughts in the comments. On the morning of July 24th, as the sun draped Charleston Harbor in a golden veil, I was preparing to live the moment I had dreamed of for years. Horizon Analytics' launch was only hours away. There was a weight in my chest, but a resolute expression on my face. This wasn't just the birth of a tech company. It was the day I broke free from the chains of the past and created a name of my own. The inside of the warehouse felt reborn. Banners with our company's vision hung on the brick walls. A large screen was placed behind the small stage, and the seating arrangement was simple yet striking. Local investors, tech journalists, old school friends, my mother, they were all there, except my father. At exactly 6 p.m., when the spotlight turned to the stage, I stepped up to the microphone. My heart was pounding, but my voice was steady. Today, we are not just launching a new company, we are launching a new perspective. Financial technology isn't just a game for giants. It should be accessible to everyone. Horizon Analytics was born from this vision, and this journey begins right here, in Charleston. As applause erupted, my eyes scanned the crowd. In the back row, standing in the corner, wearing a gray shirt, I saw him, my father. His arms were crossed, his expression unreadable, but he was there. Even in his silence, he was saying something. He had come to listen. After my speech ended, I stepped down from the stage. People approached me with congratulations, but my father hadn't moved. A few minutes later, I walked up to him. He turned his eyes to me as I approached. This time, there was no anger, just a weary silence. "You planned this from the beginning," he said. "Was that a question?" I asked with a slight smile. He lowered his head. "No. I'm just trying to understand. What you built isn't just power or money. It's a purpose." "I only wanted to make the invisible visible," I said. "You taught me the value of hard work. I carried that value into a different world." We stood in silence for a few seconds. Then he looked directly into my eyes. "You made me proud, Ezra." In that moment, the weight I had carried for so long lifted. I wasn't sure if those were the words I had been waiting for. But finally, what he said dissolved the years of silence between us. The next day, the headline in the local newspaper's technology section read, "A father, a son, and a new future, rising from Charleston. Horizon Analytics." My father framed that article. It hung in his office, right in the center of the awards he had earned from decades in landscaping. That frame didn't just hold my success, it held our battles, our silence, our stubbornness, and, ultimately, our understanding of each other. Sometimes, forging your own path doesn't mean abandoning the past. It means learning to carry it within you. And I had finally found my voice. That's my story, friends. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to like the video and subscribe.